Undercover in the Don's house. My first night as the Don's assistant, I'm led into the study of the Colonia estate. I'm an FBI agent, and my mission inside these walls boils down to one thing: to get my hands on the drug ledgers personally signed by Don Leonazzo, along with the family's internal hit orders.
What's your take on the FBI?
They're the enemy. All they do is get in the way of family business.
You know how to launder money?
I shook my head slightly. Even though this was a basic skill for any mole, I'd come up through the tactical division, and this kind of thing had always given me a headache during training.
How are you with a gun, then? Show me.
I'm clumsy with my hands. I'm not skilled at this sort of thing.
The sheep need shearing.
I'm sorry, what? I froze. Leonazzo actually knew the counterside we moles used among ourselves? Seeing my reaction, the tension in his expression eased considerably.
All right. Maria will show you around. Remember one thing, in this family, you reach too far, you lose the hand.
By the time I walked out of the study, my back was already soaked through with sweat.
Before you, 3 other people came in to be the 4th assistant. They all died.
A chill ran down my spine, and only one thought remained in my mind. I have to survive this. How did they die? The first had been a server working at one of the casinos. Because he was sharp and capable, the Don had him start helping with paperwork. Then he pushed his luck. He told the Don to cut the whole inner circle loose. He pointed a gun at his own head to force the Don's hand. The gun accidentally go off, letting him kill himself.
The second had been sent by the Mexican Federal Police. Showed up with some strange drug formulas, pitching himself as the guy who could help the family upgrade its production.
He didn't even finish the pitch. The Don clocked that his cook was way too polished for a civilian, made him for a mole on the spot, and had him executed.
The third had been a lounge singer at a bar. Her voice truly was one of a kind, and the Don had her perform at his banquet.
But once, at a dinner party, she carelessly hummed the line, "The sheep need shearing."
The U hasn't been penned yet.
The two of them exchanged an excited glance the moment the words left their mouths. Afterwards, she recommended that man to the Don, saying he had great talent and could help the family monopolize the Midwest casino business. The Don quickly discovered this was countersight moles used to identify one another, and using the pretext that the two had conspired them together over the casino business, had them locked in the interrogation cell and tortured to death. Hearing all this from Maria, a faint dread settled deep in my chest.
Here. As long as you stay in line and just do your job, you'll survive.
I was assigned to a temporary room on the western side of the estate. My daily duties included organizing paperwork, brewing coffee for the Don, running errands and delivering messages, and passing word between the various circle. The first the next morning, who looked to be to 3 around 40, the only man among the assistants. His presence carried noticeably the formidably more weight than the other two.
You're the new one, huh? Reconcile this ledger. If it doesn't balance, you can see yourself out.
Tommy. You're having someone who can't even hold a legible speth reconcile accounts? Wouldn't be trying to win her over this way, would you?
Caroline spoke with her chin lifted high, not sparing a glance of respect for anyone.
Don't be nervous. Learn the rules first. Around here, keeping your head down outlasts being clever. Thinking about those 3, are you? Gina didn't respond. My face changed instantly. So whatever you do, don't be like them. Just keep quiet, serve tea, run errands. This position of the Don's assistant isn't something just anyone gets to hold. Once the 3 of them finished giving me instructions, they each went about their own business. Maria took me around to familiarize me with the work, quietly filling me in as we walked.
Those 3 are the Don's assistants, and he's in charge of all the working for him here for quite some time.
Tommy else thinks fairly, as he manages every financial transaction the family makes, and the money that's passed through his hands has bought entire islands. Everyone considers him the natural choice for personal assistance.
Caroline was sent here as an allied representative by the Corioni family up in North Chicago. She's been here the shortest amount of time, but she's arrogant, relying on the Corioni family standing behind her. Try not to cross her if you can help it. Of the 3 assistants, the one the Don that trusts most is Gina. She's the only one in the inner circle without any family backing. She came up from the slums, has been the Don's right hand for 8 years now, and has personally handled countless dirty jobs. His own reasons for doing things this way. Just remember what I told you, keep your nose clean, and your days here will go easier.
Those words had followed me my whole life, echoing in my ears since childhood. Back when I lived under my brother's roof, he'd always told me to keep my head down.
You make sure to keep your nose clean, and don't forget to help me out down the road.
Later, when he racked up gambling debts and used me to pay them off, sending me into the bureau as a mole, he told me the same thing. During training at the bureau, they told us, it seemed to be my fate. It was only later that I understood. What Leonazzo valued most was exactly that. Someone who kept their nose clean. Someone without ambition, without any threat in them, was precisely the kind of person best suited to hold the personal assistant's position, the very seat everyone else was fighting over. For the first month, Leonazzo seemed satisfied enough with me. I never spilled the coffee, never delivered a message late, never made a mistake reconciling accounts. One day, I accompanied Leonale to my punch-gray-haired Olgin. Her presence was so imposing it made people afraid to get close. The old matriarch in the middle of teaching a little girl how to read a ledger. One moment she complained of being tired, the next of being hungry, anything to avoid actually paying attention to the ledger. But the old matriarch wasn't bothered by it in the least, guiding her patiently with a warm smile the whole time. It was clear she intended to groom Sophia as the family's heir. The moment she looked up and saw me, the warmth in her smile vanished instantly, replaced by something cold.
You must be the new one. You'll be a candidate for personal assistant as well, in time. Remember, that's the most exposed position there is. Someone will always be looking to take your place.
Those with real ability die quickly, those with ambition die even faster. I bow and took her words to heart, and the old matriarch, seeing how respectful I was, gave a small, satisfied nod. The next day, the Don had to attend a negotiation with a southern family, and the old matriarch told him outright to bring me along. I'd been in the middle of changing the water in the flower vases when I heard the news, and followed Leonazzo out with a bewildered look on my face. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Tommy frown.
Why does she get to go while Caroline burst out?
Even Gina, always so composed, gave me a look tinged with new scrutiny.
By tradition, it was the personal assistant who sat in on negotiations to take notes. I sat beside the negotiating table with a notebook in hand, recording every detail of the meeting for a full 3 hours. That night, the concessions Leonot off the Southern family were, in truth, laced with hidden menace. I recorded everything faithfully, and I understood exactly what I was seeing.
You really did write this all down clearly. Starting tomorrow, be in my study every morning at 7.
Leonazzo had many assistants, but only someone he trusted completely could ever hold the position of personal assistant. From that day on, I went to the list of candidates. But it also meant that everyone had now begun watching me closely. The day after returning from the negotiations as usual, tomorrow's shipment to the casino'd someone to escort it. Go get some practice. Escorting the shipment was originally Caroline's job. She was simply to do it herself and used getting practice to run the errand for me instead, but didn't dare refuse. After I agreed, her face softened a little. That was only the beginning. Tommy began periodically inspecting the accounts I'd organized, frequently offering guidance on my filing work. It wasn't kindness. It was surveillance, making sure I hadn't gotten my hands on information I shouldn't have. Caroline kept piling on more and more errands for me, mostly dangerous ones like escorting shipments and collecting debts. Only Gina made no move against me at all. 2 months passed quickly. Go collect a protection fee from the casino on the north side. Caroline sent me to the north side of city to collect a protection fee. Only after I arrived did I discover this small casino was actually a den for police informants. I nearly got detained by the police, but Gina had sent someone ahead to intercept me in time. That night, while I was working overtime in the records room, she pushed the door open and handed me a cup of coffee. Before Caroline sent you there, she didn't tell you the background on that casino, did she? I shook my head. This isn't the first time she's pulled something like this. Our positions here aren't easy. Bear with it when you can. Once you've proven yourself, everything changes. I looked at her, puzzled, wondering privately whether Gina might have a hidden identity like mine as well. But fearing it might expose myself too soon, I pushed the suspicion back down. You need to make the Don believe you're the one person who would never betray him. She said that to me and left. I sat there stunned for a long while before finally understanding something. Gina wasn't refusing to compete. She had already won long ago. The person the Don trusted most had always been her. Afterward, I never confronted Caroline about it, nor did I report it to Leoncio. Keeping my nose lean to survive here didn't mean I had to be a fool. At the Christmas cocktail party, someone had tampered with Leonozzo's whiskey. Fortunately, it was Gina who drank the glass, having stepped in to drink for him. Maria checked who had gone near the liquor cabinet that night, and I turned out to be the only one. The Don called me into his office the next day.
Whose orders were you acting on?
I explained frantically that I'd gone to the liquor cabinet that night only because Caroline had ordered me to pick out a good bottle. Leonazzo didn't believe me, but he didn't torture me either, only had me locked in the interrogation cellar. Every server working that night was tortured by Leonazzo's men. One of them finally broke under it and confessed. Was the vent of finding the ceremony between Luna and Corlegno in the chambers of Pinton for tort in the name of the Colonia family's collateral bloodline so as to establish his own authority within the family. Leonazzo gave him a quick death and promised to look after his family.
Don, I've never even met this server. I don't know what he's talking about. I have no idea what drug he's referring to.
Just then, the old matriarch walked into the interrogation cell.
This has nothing to do with Tommy. He was by my side the entire night.
Leonazzo's cold, dark gaze swept over Caroline, who had been standing off to the side enjoying the spectacle until that very moment, and she suddenly shivered.
Stop! This has nothing to do with me! I don't know anything!
Soon after, Maria brought in the procurement records for that patch of liquor. Not a single dollar of family funds had gone towards that liquor at all. Every bottle of it had been shipped over by Caroline from the Corioni family. Leonazio couldn't hold back and struck Caroline across the face.
Your Corson family really did send me quite a gift. Starting tomorrow, Caroline's division as his assistant is revoked. Lock her in the icing chamber and keep her under close SWAT. As for the Corleone, keep stable there for now. If you're going to be allies, then act like allies.
Their word. I was released that very same day, while Caroline was beaten and crippled before being locked away in the isolation chamber. The next day, I went to check the surveillance footage from that night, and sure enough, the server had met with Tommy right in front of the line cabinet. But within just a few days, that footage vanished, wiped completely clean. Gina was the one who oversaw the surveillance system. She said nothing about it. Over the following week, Tommy worked late into the early hours of the morning in the finance office, night after night. The next morning, I pushed open the door to Leonizzo's study at 7 o'clock sharp, just as usual. There were faint dark circles beneath his eyes, and his movements as he flipped through his papers were half a beat slower than usual. Don, didn't you sleep well last night?
Yeah, I had a bit of a headache last night. Make my next coffee a little stronger.
I went to the kitchenette to brew a fresh pot, and found Maria there changing the water in a vase.
Have things been busy lately? I noticed the lights in the finance office were still on until 4 in the morning last night. Tommy never used to work that late.
Maybe he's catching up on the quarterly accounts. At first I didn't think much of it, since the accounting work really had been busy lately. A week later, things started to feel off. Leonazzo's headaches grew more and more frequent, and sometimes in the middle of a meeting he would suddenly press a hand to his forehead and pause for several seconds. The family doctor came to examine him and diagnosed it as a nervous tension headache, prescribing medication. But 3 days into the medication there was no improvement at all, and instead a new symptom of drowsiness appeared, along with occasional lapses of attention during meetings. For a Don who had counseled his underground empire for over a decade, this was extremely out of character. Then it was Sophia's turn. Every night before Nanny came rushing in a panic to report that the child had a fever and had thrown up twice. The family doctor was called in the middle of the night and diagnosed food poisoning. Gina kept watch at her bedside all night without closing her eyes, and the old matriarch came to check on her several times as well. By the next day, Sophia's fever had broken, but she remained lensless and drained of energy. I took the coffee beans Leonardo had been drinking and had the family doctor run tests on them. The day the results came back, he walked into Leono's office carrying the beans to deliver his report.
The beans have been laced with chlorofemitine. Small doses cause headaches and drowsiness, but long-term consumption leads to nerve damage. Look into the procurement record.
That night I went through the coffee bean procurement records for the past 2 weeks. The moment I found the record, my mind went blank with shock. This batch beans had been purchased by Tommy from a private supplier labeled Organic Coffee Beans, from a company that turned out nothing but a shell. Perhaps the open and hidden power struggles within Dis family had never truly stopped at all. Chapter 7. Afterward, I reviewed Tommy's recent schedule. Over the past 10 days, Tommy had met privately with Leono's personal at her 4 separate times, each time under the pretext of reviewing the family inheritance. And the name written in the beneforia field of that inheritance was Sophia's. I stared at those notes on the schedule, my mind racing. Tommy was Leono's cousin, under the family's bloodline succession, with the old matriarch already advanced in age, if something were to happen to both Leono and Sophia at the same time. The thought sent a shiver down my spine, but at that point, Tommy would become the first in line to inherit everything.
The doctor said Sophia's meals had been tampered with as well.
Wouldn't around Nanmi Gripchwa, Tommy is incredibly devoted to Sophia.
He even brings her fruit in person.
At that point, Tommy would become the first in line to inherit everything.
The doctor said Sophia's meals had been tampered with as well.
Now you ask around the Nabido.
Tommy is incredibly devoted to Sophia. He even brings her fruit in person.
I had Gija help pull the estate's internal surveillance records, and she told me the following. Within the span of a single week, Tommy had entered the basement wine cellar multiple times. That cellar didn't just store wine. It also held the keys to the family vault, along with the ownership deeds for every dock and casino they controlled, as well as the original stamped inheritance documents. It seemed Tommy had already made all his preparations. Once both Leonzelli and Sophia were out of the picture, with these documents in hand, combined with his position as financial director, he could carry out a legally sound takeover within just 3 days. On the third day, Gina and I went to Tommy's room. He showed no surprise at all when he saw us arrive, as though he'd already guessed how this would end. Would you do something like this? You're the Don's own cousin.
Do you have any idea how many years I've worked for this Colonia family? 23 years. When I first arrived, you were still just a beggar out of the slums.
I've kept this family's books for 23 years, laundered their money for 23 years, sold my life away for them for 23 years. And then what? Leonazzo wants to leave everything to a little kid who can't do anything. Once we're old and dead, who's supposed to run this family?
She's just a little girl. She'll be picked apart until there's nothing left of her. I'm doing this for the good of this family.
You're doing this to secure your own future.
It's the same thing! You, some worthless mongrel out of the slums. What right do you have to be the one Leonazzi trusts most?
That company you bought the coffee beans from, it was dissolved 3 days ago. We found the delivery slip for that batch of fruit you gave Sophia in the kitchen. The name listed as the recipient was your driver. Tommy froze on the spot. And then, suddenly, he laughed. I stepped closer, looking at him with calm eyes. Go find the Don now, and tell him exactly what you've done. Whatever comes after that, that's for him to decide. Step
No way!
aside. He revealing a bodyguard standing behind me, on a gun in his hand. The barrel hung low, but his finger rested on the trigger, ready to pull it at any moment. Let's go. The Don is waiting for you in his study. He's even had coffee prepared for you tonight. Tommy walked out of his room with his head bowed, heading toward Leonazzo's study. I closed his bedroom door behind him and made my own way toward the study. By the time I arrived, Tommy was already kneeling on the carpet.
Leonazzo sat on the sofa, a steaming cup of coffee set out in front of him.
He glanced up at Gina and me for a moment, then lowered his gaze back to Tommy, kneeling on the floor. The firelight from the hearth fell across his face, casting a deep shadow.
Tommy, go ahead. Drink the coffee.
Tommy slowly raised his head, and only then did I see that his face was already streaked with tears and a kind of resigned calm. The old matriarch arrived at that moment as well. After all, Tommy was Ross, her nephew.
Sophia is your niece. How could you even bring yourself to do this to her? She's only 5 years old. The thing with Caroline, you were behind it all along, weren't you?
A jolt of surprise went through me. Perhaps the old matriarch had already known all along that Tommy was the true culprit behind the incident with Caroline.
The thing with Caroline, you were behind it all along, weren't you?
Leonazzo didn't kill Tommy. He only placed him under house arrest, confined for the rest of his life to the family's old estate.
A few days later, Maria told Gina and me that Leonazzo had brought in a new assistant. Leonilo didn't kill Tommy. He only placed him under house arrest. The bloodshed at the estate only just settled, and already a brand new set of office supplies had been laid out at a workstation. Gina and I were bent over Reckentel's ammunition smugly beer when 2 sets of footsteps sounded from the corridor. One heavy, one light. We didn't even need to look up to know it was Leonazzo, with an unfamiliar face walking beside him. The newcomer looked barely in his 20s, unmistakable unease hiding behind his eyes, looking exactly like I had the moment I first stepped into this cage. Leonelio idly ran his fingers over the grip of the gun at his waist, his indifferent gaze sweeping over the ledgers spread open before us.
This is Victor. He'll be working as the consigliere.
I became the 4th assistant to the Godfather.
Don, ladies, it's a pleasure to be here. I look forward to working with you.
I glanced up to size him up, thinking back on everything that had already come to pass. There would never be any shortage of pawns for the family to sacrifice. Gina and I said nothing, and neither of us expected that Caroline, locked away in the isolation chamber, would come bursting out at that very moment.
Leonazzo, what exactly did you promise our Corleone family in the first place? You said you'd cooperate with our family, and that my position would always be secure. And now you've brought in someone else.
Leonalo's face twisted with impatience, and he struck her across the face.
Look at the fine mess your family has caused, and you think you're still fit to negotiate with me. As of today, every cooperative project with the Corleone family is terminated. Take this woman back to the isolation chamber.
Just like that, Caroline was dragged away, seething with resentment, while Gina and I exchanged a glance and dared not say a word. A few days later, word arrived from the Corleone family. They claimed to have had no knowledge whatsoever of the liquor incident.
insisting on every bit and well, it's now entirely up to the Colonia family. I couldn't help but go see Caroline in the isolation chamber.
I found her lying in bed, her face deathly pale, her eyes sunken deep into their sockets, a mursh of blood still lingering at the corner of her mouth. The arrogant, dominant Caroline who once ordered me around had all but vanished. Came all this way just to laugh at me, did you? Well, I won't give you the satisfaction. You and I might not get along, but in this place, we're both just pawns who don't get to choose. Caroline burst into wild, unhinged laughter, the sound echoing through the entire isolation chamber. Why would you try to harm the Dawn? If you just kept your head down with the family standing behind you, becoming personal assistant would have only been a matter of time.
No, it wasn't me! I never even touched that batch of liquor after it arrived. I don't know who tampered with it either.
The moment she finished speaking, she threw herself headfirst against the iron door of the chamber and died on impact. I frowned, checked her breath several times to be sure, and then quietly slipped away. Watching 2 out of the 3 members of the inner circle fall, my sleep grew worse and worse. I lay in bed at night, tossing and turning, replaying everything that had happened. Caroline truly hadn't been the one behind it, because the person who'd swapped that batch of liquor had been me. I had discovered early on that the Corleone family had sent this batch of liquor, and I'd used the pretext of the upcoming signing between the 2 families to drive a wedge into their alliance. As long as the Kalania family's Dawn failed to attend, given the Corleone family's usual style, they'd be certain to claim shipment of ammunition in the north entirely for themselves. The ride swapped in was meant to cause brief unconsciousness, not kind of violent headaches that had actually occurred. I simply hadn't anticipated that someone from Witherby came to tell whether I was carrying out an assignment or living through a nightmare. The newly arrived Victor really was quite capable. He understood the accounts at a glance. His negotiation analysis was sharp and thorough, and within 2 weeks he'd already resolved the tangled mess left over from the Corio family's collapsed dealings. Gina had him housed in a guest room on the eastern side, the one furthest from the main residence. But I noticed a few things. He was far too familiar with the estate's layout, able to turn precisely into the records room from the corridor after only a few days there. That was a room even Gina sometimes took a wrong turn trying to find.
Where does the Don keep his signed ledgers? And what does his schedule look like for next month?
None of that was the kind of thing a pseudo-Celerity should be asking about. I knew things wouldn't stay quiet for long. One afternoon, the Colonia family's head of intelligence sent word claiming that an FBI agent had infiltrated Leonazzo's inner secretly passed this piece of information along to me. The moment I heard it, my entire body turned to ice, and I forced myself desperately to keep the panic inside me under control. I prayed over in my heart that the intelligence was wrong. The people closest to Leonazzo were, after all, no one but the few of us. I should have known the peace wouldn't last.
Everyone, come with me. You're being taken to the interrogation
cell. Am I in that place again? The Laster and I were subjected to torture, locked in the interrogation cell and beaten until we were a bloody, broken mess. Even Gina, the one Leonaso usually trusted most, was not spared. Though her injuries were lighter, after all, she was still the assistant the Don trusted above everyone else. None of the 3 of us cracked. Leonazzo, growing impatient with the wait, came to the interrogation cellar himself to interrogate us.
Talk! Which one of you was bold enough to betray me right under my own nose?
I kept my face calm, doing everything I could to avoid meeting Leonazzo's eyes directly. I turned my head toward Victor, blood covering his face, and for a moment he seemed to have passed out from the pain, only to be jolted awake by the crack of Leonazzo's gunshot.
Don, I'm innocent. Please, spare me.
Leonazzo turned his vicious gaze back to me, raising his hand, ready to continue the torture.
Dawn! The mole is Gina! Stop hurting anyone else!
I looked at the old matriarch as though she were my savior, and behind her stood one more person. It was the estate's housekeeper, Maria. Maria supported the old matriarch as they walked slowly in, clutching a Manana envelope in her hands.
Mom, why are you here? This is no place for you.
If I hadn't come, you would have tortured these innocent people to death.
Mother, who did you just say the mole was? Gina? That's impossible. She's been by my side longer than anyone.
The old matriarch raised a hand, and Maria stepped forward at once, placing the envelope into Leonio's hands. Matriarch's orders, I installed a listening device in Gina's room. It's been there for 2 years. Leonazzo opened the envelope. Inside was a stack of papers and 2 photographs. He looked through them as the old matriarch explained.
Those papers are copies of call logs, marking down every single number that was dialed from the landline in Gina's bedroom. 3 of them are circled in red ink. I had someone look into it. Their FBI switchboard extension.
As for those two photographs, one shows Gina at the docks, handing a document folked to a man in a black toy box, holding a bussoed device about the size of a finger. Shock spread across my face, so my earlier suspicions had been correct after all. She had spent 8 silent years, and at Liazo's side, she must have already known who I really was, which was why she'd looked out for me at every turn. Once Leonardo finished going through all the materials, he raised his head and narrowed his eyes at Gina. Gina leaned against the wall, the blood at the corner of her mouth still coating her forehead. She saw those materials. Her pupils contracted slightly, just barely, the kind of release a person feels when their final hidden card has finally been turned over.
Maria, when exactly did you start going through my room?
2 years and 3 months ago. The old matriarch said that out of everyone on this entire estate, you were the only one whose eyes, whenever they looked at the dawn, seemed off.
Gina lowered her head in silence.
When did it start?
Before I ever came to this estate.
8 years ago. You truly are a perfect mole.
Leonata walked over and looked down at her. The two of them stood so close that I could even make out the veins bulging on the back of his hand.
Leonasso didn't strike her. Instead, he bent down and reached out, wiping the blood from the corner of Gina's mouth. When I picked you up out of that slub, you had the chance to walk away.
I did.
But you chose to stay.
The interrogation cellar fell silent for a long while. Victor let out a faint groan somewhere in his half-conscious state. Else ached even more, something I couldn't quite name. Looking into Gina's blank, distant eyes, I suddenly certain that she'd wanted to leave long, long ago. After 8 years deep undercover, every single night was spent doubting whether tomorrow would ever come.
If it hadn't been for what happened to Isabella back then, this position never would have gone to you at all.
Gina offered no defense of any kind, and she never gave me up either. Sorry for dragging you into this. Watch yourself around Leonzo. He's not someone easily handled. Maria and her men took her away to be executed. And so all 3 of the Don's assistants who had been here when I first arrived were now gone. I was the last one left, the least important of them all, and I had survived this long simply by keeping my nose clean. When the old matriarch came to check on my injuries, I still couldn't help but ask, that day, who exactly was the Isabella the Don mentioned? She was the Don's personal assistant before Gina, someone who'd been by his side since childhood. After Gina arrived, Isabella was kidnapped and killed by a rival of the Colonia family during a job.
I'm afraid the incident had something to do with that.
The old matriarch gave no answer, only lowered her head and began applying medicine to my hand.
Does it still hurt?
It's much better now.
Even if it hurts, you'll bear it. Being personal assistant means enduring exactly this kind of thing.
Leonazio came to check on me several times as well. He asked me,
Can you take over the work the previous assistants used to handle?
whose work?
All of it.
I can.
With that, Leonzio turned and started toward the door. Halfway there, he stopped, without turning back. As for what happened with Gina, treat it as though it never happened. If anyone ever asks about it in the future, you know how to answer.
I gripped the wound medicine he'd brought me tightly in my hand, where quietly let had taken me 10 months, but I had finally secured a place in the inner circle. Not long after I received intelligence that the Colonia family's drug legs were being kept in the old matriarch's bedroom. I moved quickly, and soon found that ledger tucked inside the wardrobe in the old matriarch's bedroom. This operation went far too smoothly. So smoothly it left me uneasy. A few days later, an anonymous letter appeared on Leonozzo's desk. It read, Victor has recently been going through the old matriarch's private belongings. I had written that letter myself, anonymously. I had already suspected him for some time, and had reached out to my informants to look into Victor's background. It read, Victor has recently been going through the old matriarch's private belongings. I had written that letter myself, anonymously. I had already suspected him for some time, and had reached out to my informants to look into Victor's background. His resume says he studied at Chicago University of Finance. We checked, and yes, that person exists, but the enrollment year doesn't line up. Based on the information you gave us, our assessment is that he was sent here by the Hutton family. Since he was also a mole for a rival crime family, there was no harm in letting the blame fall on him. After all, one less criminal in these families was no bad thing. Afterward, Victor was executed by Leonalo's own people fall one after another right in front of me and felt no satisfaction of success, only a growing threat of fear. There were things I hadn't done myself, and yet I kept being pushed forward deeper and deeper into all of it. One night, sitting alone in the chapel, a suspicion slowly began forming in my mind, and the instant it clicked into place, a chill ran down my back. Footsteps approached. The sheep need shearing.
The U hasn't been penned yet.
The old matriarch said, smiling.
I never expected that the old matriarch who'd stayed so composed this entire time actually knew who I really was.
You're clever. You remembered what I said.
I want an answer.
Only one?
What really happened with the liquor at Christmas?
Didn't Gina already tip you off about that?
I don't understand. Why would the don't tell me he already knew what Tommy was doing all along?
Even if Tommy had never done any of those things to betray him, my son was never going to let him stay anyway. So he gave Gina a hint and had her delete that footage.
I never imagined it in control of the entire situation from the very start. You can carry on the hearing while the family can tell Tommy's guard down, and in the end he took them all down in one fell swoop.
As for Gina, that was one thing Leonardo truly hadn't seen coming.
But the old matriarch had been watching her for 2 full years already, all while everyone assumed she never involved herself in family matters. No one knew that she'd been taking it all in the entire time, allowing Gina to go on playing mole for all those years. Oh, and by the way, the estate's housekeeper works for me too. So the evidence Maria had produced to identify Gina had also been part true, part fabricated.
Why haven't you exposed me then? Leaking the family's information doesn't do you any good either.
The family?
Ever since I married into this family, everyone's told me that as a woman I shouldn't even dream of holding power the way a man does. I was sent here for a political marriage and once believed that bearing a son would earn me what should have been mine. After the old Don passed, I held influence over half the estate's holdings, and that ungrateful son of mine took power and gutted the finances top to bottom, stripping away off every private channel I had for accumulating wealth.
I was stunned, and at the same time filled with a quiet sorrow. I never imagined that despite holding such a lofty, the old matriarch had
I was only fighting for what I deserved. My ability to reach than any of those men. So why shouldn't I be able to arrange this business myself?
And once my son passes on, the entire Colonia enterprise will end up in Sophia's hands anyway.
Why shouldn't I be able to hold the reins of this business myself?
And once my son passes on, the entire Colonia enterprise will end up in Sophia's hands anyway.
Just then, Leonio pushed open the chapel doors and walked in, backlit by the light behind him. My eyes widened instantly. When had he arrived? How much should he hear?
How come you're here at a time like this?
If I hadn't come, I never would have known just how much resentment you have carried against me all these years.
Tommy craved power. The Corioni family craved money. All of them were nothing but pieces on my board. Gina was the biggest fool of all, an undercover mole who actually fell in love with the Don. She'd stopped working against you long ago. Every piece of intelligence sent to the FBI after that, I had my own people deliver it.
You've spent your whole life consolidating this family, but you never once stopped to think who was it that pushed you onto the Don's throne, and whose power did you strip away in return?
You conspired with outside enemies, passed along intelligence, planted your loyalists around me time and again, and nearly brought this entire estate to ruin.
If you hadn't ruined my business, why would I have ever needed to go this far?
Leonacio said nothing in reply, only raised his hand to signal the guards.
Confine the old matriarch to the small courtyard behind the estate. She is never to set foot outside it for the rest of her life. Cut off every line of communication to the outside world.
Chapter 13. The guards stepped forward and took the old matriarch away, and the chapel finally settled back into silence. She had never revealed my true identity to Leonanzio. Not once. I suspect it was because she hated this family. She had spent half her life being worn down by it. Her power had been stripped away, layer by layer, by the men around her, and perhaps letting the FBI bring Lienzo down was to her simply an opportunity. The chapel, silent for a full minute, suddenly filled with the quiet sound of Lienzo's voice.
Starting today, you'll help me guide Sophia, teach her the family's affairs.
Hearing Leonato's words, a faint light kindled in my eyes. I understood then that something inside him, some belief that a woman couldn't hold real power, had begun to waver, and what I would need to learn from this day forward was simply how to go on surviving on this estate. That would come at no small cost. My cost was this, that I could never, ever forget the duty I still carried. I realized that though I had survived, I had also become part of this world. But I was still a federal agent, and a federal agent could never forget her duty. It was a dangerous game, but I had made my choice. I would continue to be the fourth assistant. I would continue to be a federal agent, and I would never forget who I truly was.